Caroline in the City was a sitcom that first aired on NBC in September of 1995. The show is about a woman named Caroline Duffy who is played by Leah Thompson. Duffy is a very successful cartoonist who lives in Manhattan but is originally from Wisconsin. Her comic strip is called Caroline in the City and is based on her own life. She has a group of friends who she spends a lot of time with, and they often inspire her comic. Some of the other characters are Richard, who is her colorist and is often grumpy or in a bad mood. Del is her boyfriend at the start of the show, but they later break up but remain friends. Annie is Caroline's best friend and neighbor, and she's a Broadway dancer. There are a number of other characters as well, and most of the scenes would either take place at Caroline's apartment or at Remo's, which was a restaurant hangout spot. The show first aired on Thursday, September 21st, 1995, right after Seinfeld. And it's kind of interesting because this show actually had many similarities to Seinfeld. In Seinfeld, Jerry is a successful New York City stand-up comedian who gets much of his material from hanging out with his interesting friends. Here, Caroline is a successful cartoonist who gets ideas from her friends. They both have an ex and are friends with a cynical friend and an eccentric neighbor as well. Another really interesting thing about this show is that it took place in the NBC universe, meaning there were several crossovers with other shows. Several characters from the show Frasier appeared as themselves in episodes, including Niles and Daphne. Furthermore, the Chandler Bing character from the hit show Friends appears as himself in an episode as well, and Jonathan Elliott from The Single Guy also made an appearance on the show. But unlike Seinfeld, Friends, or Frasier, this show did not receive the same success. When the show first came out, it had pretty good ratings and averaged a ton of viewers. Over the course of the show, some changes were made though, like changing some of the main scene locations. For the fourth season, the main location changed from Caroline's apartment to her office. She also began dating Richard, and there were some other changes as well. Viewers didn't like these changes and the ratings dropped. The show ended up running for 4 seasons and had 97 total episodes, ending in the spring of 1999. The show ran in syndication in the early 2000s across many channels over the country, but many have since forgotten it. Some people have dismissed it as a Seinfeld clone or a time slot hit, just getting views because of when it was on. To me, it kind of seems like with all the great 90s sitcoms, this one kind of gets forgotten. The Parenthood was a sitcom that originally ran on the WB channel starting in January of 1995. It was created by Robert Townsend, who was also an executive producer and the star of the show as well. The show is about an NYU communications professor, Robert Peterson, his wife Jerry, and their children. They live in a townhouse in Manhattan, and Jerry is a law student who will be getting back into the workforce. In the family, there are 4 children, teenagers Michael and Zaria, grade schooler Nicholas, and toddler Cece. Robert is the main character of the show, and he does his best with the challenges of fatherhood. He's strict but also loving and has comedic fantasy sequences in the show. Jerry is a very busy mother, and she's studying to become an attorney as a law student. Michael is the oldest child and a teenager who eventually goes to college in the show and at that point was written out. He can be somewhat rebellious at times and deals with everyday challenges that a teen does. His sister is also teenager Zaria, who is smart, independent, and stylish, and often clashes with her father over his strict rules. Nicholas is the elementary school-aged kid and the funny one who's always joking around and giving his famous puppy dog eyes. Then there's Cece, who's very young, and in the time of the show eventually becomes preschool age. There are a few other fairly regular characters on the show as well. When the show aired, it received good reviews from audiences, which allowed it to get multiple seasons. However, by the 4th season of the show, viewership had declined. The show was nearly cancelled but got one final season. Also, it said that Robert Townsend often clashed with network executives about the show. The Parenthood eventually ended after 5 seasons and 90 episodes. The final episode aired in July of 1999, and the final season had just 11 episodes in it. After the show's run ended, reruns aired on the WB, as well as TBS and BET in the early 2000s. Now, part of the reason the show seems forgotten today is the fact that it originally aired on the WB and not a more popular network like NBC. Of course, the WB was later replaced by the CW, but it still got many viewers and was part of broadcast television. Unfortunately, this show just doesn't seem as remembered as many others from that time period. Life with Roger was another sitcom that first aired on the WB. This show first debuted in August of 1996 and starred Mike O'Malley as Roger Hoyt. In the show, Roger starts out as a homeless man thinking about jumping off a bridge. An uptight doctor named Jason is driving on the bridge when his car breaks down. After this, he sees Roger and talks him out of jumping. Roger is then able to fix Jason's car, and they become an unlikely pair of roommates. It's sort of like The Odd Couple, as Jason is more organized and uptight and Roger is way looser. Jason is engaged to a woman named Myra, but they end up calling off the wedding after Roger convinces him they're not a good fit. In the show, Roger is always trying to get Jason to loosen up and not be so rigid. Another main character in the show is Jason's sister Lainey, who lives in the same building and often drops by to make jokes or something. When the show first aired, it received some decent reviews, nothing spectacular, but overall the show appeared to have some promise with the story and acting. But there were negative reviews as well. But the biggest problem was not that many people were watching it. The show had low viewership in its Sunday night time slot. Eventually, it was cancelled due to low ratings after just one season and 20 episodes. The final episode aired in March of 1997. Because of the fact that there were only 20 episodes, this limited the show from being aired in syndication or reruns, as there just wasn't enough, and because of that, it's a large reason why it's forgotten today. Big Brother Jake was a sitcom that first aired in September of 1990 on the Family Channel. This was the first ever sitcom that was broadcast on the channel. It was about a man named Jake Rosner, who was played by Jake Steinfeld. In the show, he's a former Hollywood stuntman who returns to his foster home in Brooklyn, New York, after his foster father passes away. There, he helps his foster mother raise her children that she has. Jake narrates the show, and his friend Gary, who's a lawyer, and his ex Jane are some of the other main characters. Then there's the kids, Lou, Kateri, Jill, twins Andy and Dave, and Caroline. The show was a wholesome, family-friendly comedy, as you might have been able to guess with it being on the Family Channel. Overall, it had many uplifting themes, such as "Don't Quit," which was Jake's catchphrase. When the show first came out in the fall of 1990, it performed pretty well. There were mostly positive reactions to it. It wasn't a huge smash hit or anything, but for the Family Channel, it became one of their main shows. It went on to run for 4 seasons and have 88 total episodes. It ran all the way until April of 1994. After that, reruns of the show were aired on the Family Channel for a few years until around 1997. Then, in 1998, the Family Channel became Fox Family, and then a few years after that became ABC Family in 2001. In 2016, it then became Freeform, which it is still known as today. As for Big Brother Jake, the show seems almost completely forgotten today. This isn't a huge surprise, as it was a cable show, so not as many people were able to watch it. But it didn't have a huge run in reruns either. It's interesting because it didn't just run 1 year and then get cancelled, it had a whole 88 episodes, which not many people seem to remember. Finally, we have Sports Night. This was a show that first aired in the fall of 1998 on ABC. It was about a fictional sports news show called Sports Night and all the drama and craziness that goes on with the show. There were 6 sort of main characters in the show, with the first being Dan Rydell, who's one of the co-anchors of the show. He's a high-energy guy and is best friends with Casey, who he has worked with before. Casey is the other anchor and has recently been divorced and has a crush on the show's producer Dana. Dana oversees the nightly broadcast and is successful but also high-strung and loves the adrenaline of live TV. Isaac Jaffe is the managing editor, who's wise and sort of a father figure to everyone there. Jeremy Goodwin is a research analyst and producer with a great memory. Then there's Natalie Hurley, who's another producer and gets in a relationship with Jeremy. Other characters would appear on the show as well, and it followed the challenges and drama of making a live news sports broadcast. After the show started airing on Tuesday nights on ABC starting on September 22, 1998, it had fairly poor ratings. Many people who saw the show liked it, and it did have good critical reviews. However, overall not enough people watched it, and others just didn't know what to make of it. The show was unlike most sitcoms at the time with its overall style. It averaged about 11.5 million viewers per week, which is a lot, but the top sitcoms at the time such as Friends or Frasier averaged over 20 million. The show was brought back for a second season, however, it failed to improve enough and was then cancelled. There were just 2 seasons and 45 total episodes of the show, with the last one airing in May of 2000. After the show's cancellation, reruns aired on Comedy Central in 2001 and 2002. Since then, there hasn't really been much of it. This is a show that many people feel was cancelled too soon, and it was maybe a bit ahead of its time. It seems to be remembered well today, with mostly good reviews from those who did watch it. But overall, the show feels largely forgotten, mainly because of its short run. That's all for today's video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.